Let you know. All right, we are live, episode 24. And today we are blessed with a guest that me or Paul have never met in person before. He reached out to us. His name is David Eby. And I'm going to let him tell mainly his story. All I really know from doing a little research is he taught English in China and he wrote a book. And other than that, I'm going to turn it over to David, and he can give us his background, and we'll start talking about whatever he wants to talk about. But I'm sure
there's going to be a lot of questions from us.
A lot of questions as far as what you did in China. Yeah. The other, I do want to mention, because this is another, like, I don't know what you would call it, but he was born legally blind. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming he can see to some degree because he walked down the steps with no aid. So I don't know what legally blind actually means, but I'll let him explain that too. But yes, he's done everything he's done, and he's legally blind. All right, David,
there you go.
Fill us in.
Good morning, everybody. This is my first time on YouTube, so I'm very excited about this, and I think this is very cool. And I want to thank Kelly and Paul for having me.
No problem. We're always open for
their
guests.
Show. So
yeah.
I'm excited about this. First, I will explain what legally blind is. I grew up with the term, so to me, I just assume everybody knows it, and I realize it's a new term to many people. I like to joke that I'm legally blind, so I'm doing nothing illegal in being blind. But in my father's family, we have a condition where people are born, I think the technical word is with the nystagmus, and it seems like once every generation somebody gets hit with it. I was a person in my generation. My dad has a cousin who had it. He has another cousin whose grandson has the condition. And so I'm thinking, why me? How did I get so lucky? And legally blind is a classification by the government which applies to people whose vision is 2200 or worse. 20/20 is standard. And so I think I'm 2200, which means legally I cannot get a driver's license. I wouldn't want that, to be honest with you, because people would die. and
yourself maybe included.
Nobody wants that. When I'm traveling with my brother, sometimes I will often say, my brother's name is Darvin. I will often say, Darvin, I understand why I don't have a license, but how did that person get one? There's a lot of bad drivers out there.
I'll vouch for that.
And,
so you don't backseat drive too much then? Like my wife hates when I do that.
Well, I don't, because I figure I don't have a place to do it. But I will tell you, in China, I've taken a lot of taxis, and I've had a lot of exciting taxi rides in China. And I will give a shout out to the ladies. I have found in China, the lady taxi drivers are generally better and more consistent than the male taxi drivers. Okay. Because the male taxi drivers are thinking about the next fare, so they want to get her done.
Right.
Yeah. And the lady drivers are a little bit more safety conscious. Mm-hmm. Now, in fairness, I have had many male taxi drivers who are also excellent drivers, but there's that handful where I'm thinking, I'm glad I don't see well for this one.
I don't know what we're going to hit. Now, that is interesting that you say lady and I haven't used taxis hardly ever in my lifetime in the U.S., but when I've seen taxis, I never even think I ever saw a lady taxi driver in this country. I mean, and not that I've seen a lot of taxis, but and I would have thought in China, maybe that isn't even a thing ladies do, but apparently they do.
Well, one of the cool things about China is I will see ladies doing jobs that they generally don't do here.
Okay.
For example, if I go past a construction site, I will see ladies with hard hats on out there working with the men. Now they're doing different types of work,
right?
Obviously, because there are physical differences in strength and so on. But China has a way of finding a place for everybody and finding something to do for everybody, which I think is fantastic.
Oh yeah.
When I first went, I didn't see as many lady taxi drivers, and I would say there's still a lot more male drivers, but there are some women who do it, and they're doing a great job with it. Same with bus drivers. Now,
bus drivers I
Bus
see a lot of
drivers,
women,
yeah,
but
yeah.
but and I don't- like I say, there's probably a million taxi drivers that are ladies. I just don't see a whole lot of taxis
Well,
in my lifetime.
I grew up in Ephrata, and we're in Ephrata now, and Ephrata is a typical small town United States, and I've never seen a taxi in Ephrata. So,
Yeah,
but I
Very,
will
very
say,
rarely.
Yeah, but we don't have them, but there was in the city. Lancaster has them, and they would
That's
come
true.
out here. And then Lidditz at one point, I don't know if that's still in business, but since Uber is now in play,
Yeah.
but Lidditz did have a taxi company that would
Yeah.
come here fairly often.
oh, is that right? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I didn't either.
Yeah. Uber. I use Uber frequently,
I would. Yeah.
and with Uber, I get both uh, men and lady drivers.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
I tell ya,
That's true.
if you want to do something interesting, take Uber, because I've had so many fun conversations
Yeah.
with Uber taxi drivers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've met a lot of people who are coming from different cultures and who immigrated to the United States. I met some older traditional Pennsylvania Dutch gentlemen. So it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
the
yeah.
whole, the
Oh,
whole
yeah.
gamut. the
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
gamut.
So you did grow up in Ephrata then?
I did,
You
yeah.
grew up in it. Went to Ephrata High School.
I did, yeah. I was born in Ephrata, and I'm not going to tell you what year because it was last century, a long time ago.
I bet I have you beat.
I believe you might from what you said. I will tell you this year I'm 3 or 53. But,
oh yeah, I got you beat.
But hey, life only gets better as you get older.
Oh yeah, I'm
every
having
stage
fun.
of life is
I'm
good.
having fun.
If only I was 18 and knew then what I knew now. But
Oh
it is
well,
what it
that's
is.
true with all of us, I
Yeah.
believe.
But yeah, my dad was a farmer when I was a young guy. Our farm was actually owned by Green Dragon, and
Oh, yeah.
we were on the backside of Green Dragon. We lived in a beautiful old stone farmhouse. Then in December of 1979, we moved to Lincoln. My grandfather owned a farm in Lincoln where Elite Coach now is,
Oh, okay. Yeah,
okay.
and so they built a house along Lincoln Road, which is now Lincoln Garden Roads, in 1966, maybe, I forget the exact year, as a retirement home.
Okay.
So we moved in there in 1980, and then eventually the Lincoln Gardens sprung up behind us, and so then Dad was driving truck at that point.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a fun life.
All right.
So is the house still at Green Dragon area somewhere?
No, they took that house down.
Did
The
they?
barn
Okay.
is there.
Yeah, I've worked in that barn. Yeah.
Oh, did you?
Mhm.
Yeah, they refurbished the barn
Yeah.
and use it. I don't know what they use it for
Maintenance.
now. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
But for those of you who have not been to Green Dragon,
Yeah.
when you get to
Yeah.
Ephrata, that's a definite must
Oh,
visit.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Absolutely, it is.
The sausage sandwiches and the fish sandwiches there's so many good things there.
I agree. And the other thing I like are the sandwiches at Rob Subs.
Oh yeah. Oh, you can't beat Rob Sub.
I asked them a couple years ago how long they're there. They said they've been at Green Dragon for 75 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
Now-
did your family live in that farm behind Green Dragon before Green Dragon became a farmer's market?
No,
Okay.
no. So our driveway was always a Green Dragon parking lot.
Okay.
And
all right.
Yeah.
Mom and Dad moved in there when they were married,
Okay.
and Dad was farming. So yeah, Green Dragon was a
It
farmer's
was
market.
already a farmer's
Yeah,
market
yeah.
at that point.
So actually, we didn't own the farm; we rented it from Green Dragon.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, all those fields behind the parking lots, I assume they still own.
Probably. So,
Yeah, I think they own all the way back to Muller Church.
Yeah, that sounds right.
All the way back, and then the other side goes back even further to the railroad tracks. I
Yeah.
believe where the railroad tracks used to be.
Yeah, because our fields went back to Muller Church.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah. And there was I didn't get a chance to read it yet, but this week in the Effort Review, there is an article about Green Dragon and
the owners.
kids,
Yeah,
Mhm.
I saw
Is
that.
that right?
I
Yeah,
didn't read the
John,
article
Rob,
yet.
and the daughter. Yeah, there's a nice article there. I think front page maybe.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
that
I just
sounds
didn't get a
interesting.
chance to read it, but yeah, I'm anxious to read that because they got a lot of good history there, and it's coming down through the generations, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. And I think one of the great things about Green Dragon, since I've been overseas, I love culture. And you have so many different cultures coming together there at Green Dragon.
Oh,
the
yeah.
traditional
Nowadays,
Amish
yes.
culture.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then you have some foreign influence there. I think it's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Right.
it's
No.
a little. little different than like roots.
Yeah.
It's I think they sell a lot of the same things, but it's a different clientele.
Yeah, it's a different feel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is. Not bad or good, just different.
Yeah, but I remember when I was a boy, they had the cattle auction and the hay auction on Fridays as well.
Okay.
I don't believe they do that anymore.
I don't think so. But I do remember when they did. Not that I sat there and watched it, but I remember.
You remember that?
I remember it. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I remember seeing truckloads of hay back there. And
Yeah.
I always wondered why
Yeah.
we didn't sell some hay there.
Yeah, well, yeah, it would have been pretty easy for you. So when you were in school, high school, middle school, did you because of your eyesight, were you in mainstream school, or did you have somebody work with you, or how did that work? I mean,
Well, that's a great question. When I was going into elementary school, my parents decided to send me to a small Christian school.
okay.
So I went to Ephrata Mennonite school
Oh,
through
okay.
8th grade. And their thought was I would get more attention there from the teachers. And the teachers there were great. And throughout elementary, junior high, and high school, teachers were very willing to work with me, and they were very understanding about my condition. My thing was I had to learn how to learn.
Okay.
And,
Oh, right.
I think
Yeah.
many children who struggle learning, people have passed that concept that maybe they need to learn how to learn. And for me, that meant I couldn't read the blackboard.
Yeah.
And they would often sit me in the front row, which was great, but I still couldn't read the blackboard. And eventually what I learned how to do is I learned that listening very well in class is very important to me. And when I started to do that, I started to do well in school.
Okay.
Because the teacher covers everything in the blackboard and more.
Sure.
The other thing I found that was very important is preparation. And so I did my homework. I read my book, and I found those things helped me. And when I went to college and for my master's degree, I even found that to be more beneficial.
Okay.
Now, when I did my master's degree, we were using things like PowerPoints and all that new technology.
Right.
And then the professors were very accommodating. They would send me the PowerPoints, and they would just ask that I would use it for my own use, and that's it, which I, of course, respected.
Right. And you also played sports, right?
I did.
I mean, and I only just a little bit. I looked you up, so I knew something about you. You played sports in high school.
Yeah.
And that. Well, I mean, sports are hard enough when you can see well.
Yeah.
So,
well, I remember when I was in junior high, and I was still at Ephrata Mennonite then. My mom bought me and my brother a weightlifting set from Sears.
oh, cool.
The cheap.
Yeah, the
concrete.
plastic sand filled.
You got it.
Yeah.
And so I really got into that. I used that a lot. Well, then in my junior year in high school, at the end of my sophomore year, I guess, I decided I wanted to go out for football.
Okay.
Dad was very nervous about that. And, my dad, he was a good father. He passed away in 2008, but he and mom were great. And one of the things they did for me, which I think has made me who I am today, is they kept me safe, which all parents should do.
Right.
But they weren't afraid to let me do something and fail.
Right.
For example, when I was a boy, I would mow the yard, but it was easy for me to miss patches of grass.
Oh,
yeah.
And so I would be down in the yard running my hand over to find out where I missed it.
Oh, yeah.
And then later on, Dad would go and catch those places I missed.
Right. Right.
But, that being said, when it came to football, Dad was nervous about it. Dad was never into sports. He didn't understand a lot about sports. So he called the head coach. Merv Whitmer was the head coach.
Okay.
Merv's a great guy.
Yeah.
And he called Merv and talked to Merv about it. And Merv thought I should be fine. So Dad agreed to let me try it. And so I went out my junior year, and one of the great players in my class was Rob Groh.
I know Rob.
You know Rob?
I know Rob.
I
Yeah.
haven't seen Rob since high
I
school.
haven't seen him probably for the last, I'm going to say 15 years, but his one son and my son played midget football at Warwick together.
Oh, is that right?
And I had known of Rob before that, but then I sort of got to know him through that. But I haven't seen him either for a number of years.
Yeah.
But
And then I played offensive and defensive tackle. Well, the other offensive tackle was also in my grade, named Eric Ensinger. And they were both good tackles. And so I was playing behind them, which I expected because I didn't know anything about football.
Right. Well, and it's tough when you get to that age and you're only starting, because all them other guys had 10 years under their belt by then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of fun. And football, you talk about football practice, but for me, during football practice, we were still playing football.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I played at Cacalico.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
A little bit before your time, but
So you played with Phil Kaufman.
yes, he was head coach when I was in 10th grade. It was probably Phil's second year of head coaching.
Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. But so yeah, I played all high school with Phil as the coach. I still get a kick if when Phil does the Blue Ridge broadcasting. I enjoy listening to that because he sounds exactly like he did in the locker room.
Oh, wow.
It just
Oh, wow.
I really enjoy that hearing that.
Oh, yeah. And he's no nonsense either. He
No,
just
no.
tells it as it is.
Yeah.
He's not trying to put any weird spins on it.
No.
Well, there's something about Phil that he doesn't know. I've never met Phil.
Oh, okay.
Right,
But there's
okay.
something
Yeah.
he did that has influenced my teaching career.
Okay.
Yeah.
When
I hope Phil are you out there watching?
Yeah.
I hope you are, Phil.
He might be.
Oh,
This is a big shout out to you, Phil. But he said something in a newspaper article one time. He was retiring from coaching. I think it might have been the first time he retired. I think didn't he retire twice?
He skipped a year when his son was a senior in high school.
Okay.
And I guess took a leave of coaching for that 1 year. I think.
Well, this was later then. I think this
Okay.
was his actual retirement.
Maybe it was his. Yeah.
But the Lancaster newspapers did an article on him, very nice article. And the one question they asked him, they said, how have students changed since you started coaching until now?
Right.
And his answer was amazing. He said, students haven't changed. Parents have changed.
And that's exactly right.
Yeah. And so I took that with me and I use that in my teaching career. And I've seen it too, because I've taught students who later became teachers. And I used to laugh because I would hear them complaining about things that students were doing. And I thought to myself,
Yeah.
you did the same thing.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And that's
I always took those words with me. I appreciated that.
No,
Yeah.
but that's true. I mean, the only reason kids are different is because their parents treat them different, and
Yeah.
parents are also. I even know from the little bit of coaching I did at Warwick for 8-year-old kids for 1 year,
Yeah.
parents have I would say they're way too more involved in between their kids and the coaches.
Yeah.
Like when I played, my mom and dad, I mean, they went to games, but if I didn't start, they didn't care. It was my own deal.
Yeah.
Nowadays you have like, why isn't my son doing this?
Yeah.
You know, they're way more on, like, I guess you'd say helicopter parents or whatever.
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
But
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. Well, I'm friends with Phil, and I will send him a message to say, hey.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate
Well,
that.
I'm also Facebook friends with him,
Yeah.
so it's not
Yeah.
out of the question he doesn't check this out.
No, yeah, we were on church council together.
Oh,
Yeah,
fantastic.
so yeah, he's a good guy. But
So then you went on to college.
well, just one more
Oh, okay,
question.
go ahead,
Sorry,
go ahead.
on football.
Yeah.
Okay, like so. You said you would mow the grass, and then you would have to feel to see
Yeah.
how high it was, and I would imagine that doing things like that would take a second or two for your brain to process. Okay, this is what's going on. This is what I need to do, and like football is super quick.
Yeah.
There's a guy running at you, like ready to take you out, and so what? As being partially blind, like what? That process has to come fairly quickly. How did you deal with that?
Well, that's an interesting question, and I never thought about it. It just was my normal. And I would say with football, for anybody who's starting, especially for people who start in their junior year in high school, the learning curve is so big at first. But the great thing about a big learning curve is you make a lot of progress at first.
Yeah.
And so when I started, I wasn't going up against the varsity guys. I wasn't ready for that.
Right.
Yeah, I was going up against the JV guys.
Mm-hmm.
My senior year, I didn't think about the speed. My
Okay.
senior year, I went up against Rob and Eric
Right.
and some of those other great
Right.
players every day in practice. And I didn't think about it. It's just what you did.
You did. Okay.
Yeah, and being down in the line,
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot closer.
Yeah.
And so
So the processing would be a little quicker then, I guess. Then.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Huh.
But sometimes it takes longer to get up a big head of steam.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I was out with the running backs and wide receivers, they would let me in their best. It wouldn't even be a competition.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Close proximity, you did. It was.
yeah.
Mm.
But for parents out there, remember, sports are for fun.
Yeah.
And many times, for me, I say this in my book, I believe, football did more for me than I did for football. And I think that's true for the majority of athletes.
Yeah.
And let's be honest. There's probably a very high probability your kid's not going to make the NFL.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So don't accept that for
right.
what it is.
Yeah. And let him be a kid and
Yeah.
enjoy it in high school.
Yeah. And then you enjoy it too.
Yeah.
That's the
No,
key.
that's excellent words. And I think, like you said, football for me probably did way more for me than I did for it as well.
Yeah.
You go through them practices, especially like the August when we used to do 2-a-day practices,
I remember those.
and you start to learn that you can do way more than you ever thought you could.
Yeah.
And that carries through in anything in life. Then you're faced with a challenge and you sort of look back and, well, I never thought I could do that. I never thought I could run that many sprints, because your body's telling you I can't, but you do it anyway.
Yeah.
And so, you do learn a lot about yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love Chris Miller is the coach now for Ephrata, and he has been for quite a few years, and he's really good with the kids, and just they're practicing like twice a day now.
Yeah.
I mean, they're out there, and you can hear them when he'll have them all stop, all get together. And maybe they did this when, with you guys too. I wasn't into football, but they would all come together and give a cheer. It was a team sport.
Oh, yeah,
They made
it
sure
definitely is a
that
team
really
sport,
was.
yeah.
He seems like he really instills that, like, you count on your buddy.
Right.
This
Yeah,
is a
it
life
is
lesson.
It is definitely a team sport.
Yeah, he does. Him and his guys do great.
Yeah.
With the kids.
Well, they've turned that program around at Ephrata.
Yeah, and there was definitely some Scott Shelley did a good job.
Yeah.
It's just, I think, there was a lot of changes that happened there too. I think they went to a different division.
Yeah.
So I think that helped because they were losing a
Right.
lot. And I think they were just going up against too many of the big boys, so to speak. You know what I mean? And
Scott was coaching when I played. He was coaching for Ephrata when I played.
Okay.
I think he was a D-back coach. And Merv's incredible guy, and you should have him on this podcast. He's just
all somebody has to do is say, "Can I be on?" More likely, you can be on.
But
I'd love to sit down with Phil too. That would be great.
Maybe we could have both of them at the same time.
there you go.
That would
Ephrata Cacalico.
The other coach from Ephrata who played a big influence in me was Coach Kokuski, Tony Kokuski.
Oh, Tony, yes.
You know Tony.
Mm-hmm.
And Tony did not let me use my eyesight as an excuse.
Oh.
I remember one practice. I didn't play in the kickoff team.
Okay. Well,
yeah, but so everybody else was doing the kickoff and running down there. Well, Coach K thought that I should be running down there too.
okay.
So I lined up with the one unit and ran down there. And, looking back, I appreciate that because he wasn't letting my eyesight be an excuse not to do something.
Yeah.
And then as I've been an adult, I've used Tony different times for legal services.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I saw him last fall in at Gus's, and he's a great guy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I know him. I know him to see him, say hi to him.
He was on Borough Council, so I got to know him a little bit through Borough Council.
Okay.
Yeah, good guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you were playing at Ephrata, was Pat Ross involved with the program at that point yet?
No,
probably not.
No.
But Pat was a senior at Cacalico when I was in 10th grade.
Okay.
And then he went and played at Millersville, and I wasn't sure when he started actually coaching at Ephrata, but I know he's done it for what seems like forever at this point. Yeah. But I wasn't sure if he would have been there yet when you were playing. But so.
Yeah, I didn't mean to get stuck on football.
No, that's all right.
Good connections here. They're really interesting to hear. So
it is football season. So.
Yeah, well, it just started. It's So you went where to college then?
I went to Messiah College, which
Oh.
is now Messiah University, up in Grantham, just outside of Harrisburg.
I have a very good friend of mine, pastor at the UCC
Mhm.
church in Denver right now. Brad Hawes went to Messiah.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and
How
he
did
would have been there. Like, he's younger than me, but older than you, so he would have
Okay.
been in there probably right before you went up there. But
Yeah, I graduated in 1991.
yeah, and he probably would have graduated, I'm going to say 85, 86 from there, and then went
Okay.
to seminary after that. But yeah, he went to Messiah.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So, in fact, he was on our podcast a couple weeks ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I might have to go back and
Yeah,
check that out.
Brad Hawes.
Yeah.
So then you went there.
What
Yeah.
was your major there? What was
Business administration.
okay?
What's interesting is I thought in high school that I wanted to be an English teacher.
Mm.
But I thought that with my eyesight, it would be difficult for me to manage a classroom.
Mm.
And then I thought, well, if I study business, I should be able to get a decent job. And so I chose business. I don't regret choosing it. I learned a lot of great things. And I love my time at Messiah. And when I first got there, talking about my eyesight, I didn't tell anybody I was legally blind.
Oh, wow.
I figured I want to see how I can do.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
sure.
Well, that's very
Well-
honorable of you.
Yeah.
The guys on my floor figured it out.
Oh, yeah.
And there was one giveaway. When I would read, I'd have to hold the book close to read.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And so that was the giveaway.
But other than that, you have them fooled.
I did.
Yeah.
But there is one thing that I've learned in recent years, and I go back and think over my life, and I wonder how many people I offended unintentionally. Because one of the things that I miss, my eyesight is hard to understand. It's hard for other people to understand. I love contrast. When I came in here, you were impressed that I saw that cord in the front.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things is the contrast between the color of the cord and the color of the carpet.
Okay.
That's a big contrast. But a lot of people, they wave and whatnot.
Oh, yeah.
And you don't see.
I don't see it.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people might think I'm being aloof or that I'm being a jerk or whatever.
Yeah.
Now, people who know me know I don't see
know,
it.
yeah.
Right.
But people who just know me casually. So if you're one of those people, I was not trying to.
He has a good excuse.
I do have a good excuse. Actually, it's more than an excuse; it's a reason. And if I could change it, I wouldn't.
Oh, wow,
but I
yeah,
can't.
sure.
But so yeah, that's just one of the things. I had to learn to live with it. And when I was younger, I tried to. I don't want to say deny it because I never denied it,
Okay.
but I tried to live like I didn't have it.
Right.
Mhm.
And looking back, that was probably a mistake of youth.
Well, but you didn't know anything else. Like I certainly don't want to belittle your condition or any other condition that like if you have a child that is born with no arm.
Yeah.
From birth.
Yeah.
They learn to adapt very quickly
Absolutely.
because they don't know anything different.
Absolutely.
And if I was today to lose my arm, or if my eyesight went from what it is today to yours, I would probably have a much harder time dealing with it because I'm used to being able
Right.
to see and have an arm.
Yeah. You get it. You totally get it. Yeah, you do. But now I'm not afraid. Now I'm not afraid to tell people that I have vision issues. When I meet a new class when I'm teaching,
Right.
I would tell them right off the bat. I'll say, look, when you raise your hands, I might miss it because my eyesight is very poor.
Yeah.
So if you say, hey, Dave over here, or Dave, there's somebody over there, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
One year I was flying in from China and I flew into Dallas. Dallas is a great airport to fly into because right when you go through custom, there's a Mexican restaurant. And after eating delicious Chinese food for a year, and it's incredible there, I love it. I'm ready for a Mexican meal. So I love it. But the monitors in the Dallas airport are up pretty high, so it's hard for me to read the gate connect information.
Okay.
So there's a kiosk there with customer service, and I stop by there and I say, hey, I have trouble seeing. I have trouble reading those monitors. Can you tell me where this flight connects? Well, it's no
I
problem.
mean, that's your job.
Yeah, it's their job.
Yeah.
And generally, when I take that approach, and I think this is true in life, when we approach something in a humble way, we're going to get a positive response,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's a big deal.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah. I think too. So Messiah, you made it through there, and then you.
And in Messiah, I picked up 2 new sports. Messiah doesn't have football.
That's right. They don't.
They have a great soccer program, but I went out for the wrestling team at Messiah.
And that is tough. I mean, I never wrestled. My son did as a youth, but I would say if you're starting to wrestle in college, you are way behind the 8 ball.
Fortunately, Messiah was Division III.
Okay.
My first year, I was an automatic starter because I was the only heavyweight we had.
Okay.
Well, we had another guy. It was also his first year,
Okay.
but I was a better athlete than he was, and so when we wrestled off for the spot, I ended up falling on top of him.
That was the end of it.
But, my first year, I got pinned every match except 3. One match, except 3, I believe. One match I was technical fault. One match I got a forfeit win, my first college match. And then the next match I ran into a guy who was even greener than I was, and I pinned him.
Oh, really? Okay. Well,
So-
but yeah, that would be one of the toughest sports to take up
Yeah.
in college.
But by my senior year, Messiah was part of the MAC back then. Now the
Okay.
MAC, I think, has been divided into 2 athletic conferences. And so there was 20 teams in the MAC, maybe a few more than that. And my junior year, I finished 500. And my senior year, I was an MAC All-Star. I finished 6th in the
Wow.
conference that year. So I came a long way.
Made
And
large strides in a short period of time in
Well,
the sport of wrestling.
I did. And Coach Gustafson up there at the time, very patient coach, very good guy. I learned a lot from him. I learned a lot from the assistant coach Weitzel. And my 2 advantages were I was in good shape and I was strong.
Okay.
My disadvantage was I lacked knowledge.
Mm.
But the great thing about wrestling is a great sport for people who are visually impaired or who are blind. Because wrestling has a rule that if you're blind or if you're visually impaired, you can have a constant contact rule. So if I was wrestling you, you would put out your hand.
Okay.
Put out your hand, and then our hands would be in contact the whole time.
So the guy can't be running all over.
Oh, right.
Yeah, he can still be doing what he does, but you need to keep that contact.
Okay.
Okay.
Now,
yeah.
I never used that rule because I didn't need it.
Hmm.
But some guys did,
Okay.
and that's okay. But yeah, it's a fun sport.
Yeah.
and
It's a tough sport.
it is a tough sport. And you talked about football helping you learn to do things you didn't
I
think you could
think
do.
wrestling is even more than that.
Exactly.
And
really is.
I'm not a wrestler, but
Yeah.
I just know from watching my kid and other people wrestle that. I mean, I sort of wished I would have hindsight because
Yeah.
I think it would have been a good life lesson, if nothing else.
No, that's true.
And what was the other sport?
Track and field.
Okay.
I ran the 10,000 meters. No, that's
No, I
not
was going to say no. I'm not picturing that right
I
now.
ran the 10,000 meters. It took me 2 days.
Yeah.
No, I did the shot put.
Okay.
I did the shot put. Messiah was not a great shot putting team because we didn't have a football team.
Okay. So there wasn't a lot of big guys on campus.
No. So I was literally a big guy in campus because I was a big guy. But yeah, I started that my junior year.
Okay.
And I loved it. It was different than wrestling and football because it didn't have the physical intensity that those
Right.
sports had.
Mhm.
But it was such a fun sport to compete in, and I still love to watch track and field and the Olympics and
Yeah.
national events.
Yeah.
So yeah, the shot put. When I graduated, I had the second best throw in Messiah history.
Really?
It was only 42
Oh.
but still it was up there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now it's way down on the list. A lot of great athletes have passed that,
Okay.
which is fantastic.
Yeah.
And then 2 of my roommates did it as well. Actually, 3 of my roommates did it one year. One of the roommates did the javelin. 2 other roommates did distance running.
Okay.
They also ran cross country. And I would always say to them, look, in the sports that I do in football and wrestling, when you make a mistake, you're running after practice.
Yeah. It's like a punishment. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In cross country, when you make a mistake, you're not running after practice.
Yeah.
How do they punish
How do they
you?
punish you? Yeah.
Stand still.
Yeah. So you're done at Messiah,
Yeah.
and then you did what?
Well, I graduated in 1991, and that was at the time of the first Gulf War incident with Iraq.
Okay, yeah.
And the economy, we were in a recession then. The job market was stagnant. So I was looking and looking, and I couldn't find anything. My first job was actually working for Charlie Weber
Mm.
as a mud boy.
Okay.
And that was humbling for me. I could barely handle it because I'm thinking, why did I waste 4 years in college if I'm going to just move mud around for block layers?
Yeah.
Um, then I got a job at Summers Trucking. I had an internship at Summers Trucking when I was in college. My dad drove truck for them,
Okay.
a great company. And so then I got a summer job with them during their busy time, doing different office jobs and just filling in wherever. Well, when their slow season came, I was out, which I understand. So then I looked at going into Mexico with a youth mission program, a short-term program. So I trained in Philadelphia for 2 months, went to Guatemala for a few weeks for Spanish study, and then went to Mexico for about 3 or 4 months and was working down there supporting a Bible school. So that was a lot of fun. I had always wanted to go to Mexico. That was my chance.
Okay.
And we were in the state of Oaxaca, so I was right along the Pacific Ocean. My bunk was literally about 200 yards from the ocean.
So it was like you're living the resort life.
We were living in paradise. We really were. We really were. And so I did that for a few months and went back a few years later to visit.
So now I got to ask you, you went down there and you went to Guatemala.
Yeah.
So can you speak Spanish?
A little.
Okay.
A little, because
A little
I
is
never
more than I
studied,
can.
never studied it in high school.
Okay.
But now I have another problem. When I try to think of Spanish, Chinese words come into my head.
Okay. Yeah, because I would assume you can speak Chinese.
I can speak enough Chinese where people think I'm better than I am.
Okay. All right.
I teach so much English in China that I didn't learn it as well as I could have otherwise, but I can get around just fine.
So you're not fluent in any other language, but you're able to communicate in a couple different languages.
Correct.
And,
And I'm more fluent than Chinese by a long shot than I am in Spanish.
okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, you spent way more time there too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Can you speak Pennsylvania Dutch?
No, that was my mom's first language.
Well, that's why I thought maybe,
Yeah.
My grandparents on my dad's side could. They didn't much,
Yeah.
but they could. And that was always something that intrigued me to learn how to speak Pennsylvania Dutch, so that if I did go to Green Dragon and there's Amish
Yeah.
talking Dutch, I could chime in and like they'd look at me like,
But yeah, my mom can still speak it. Her and my aunt speak it sometimes.
Okay.
But dad could not really speak it. So mom and dad didn't speak it together.
So you never were all that exposed.
I wasn't exposed to it much. And sometimes mom would speak it just so me and my brother wouldn't know what they were
Yeah.
Just like when they would spell things, so we wouldn't know what they
Right,
were talking about either.
Yeah.
Your parents did that too.
Yeah, well, yeah.
You probably did the same thing.
Yeah.
But
so you did that mission work, and then you came back from that.
yeah, I came back and wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I was sharing at my church about my time in Mexico, and one of the owners, the Paul B. Zimmerman, goes to my church.
Okay.
And he said to my dad afterwards, he said, "Hey, my brother's division is looking for somebody. His brother was in charge of Keystone Coating."
All right.
And so the right-hand man in the office there was moving to Indiana. And so I went in for an interview and they offered me the job. And so I took that and I worked at Keystone Coating for the next 12 years. And then in my final year there, I transitioned into human resources for all of Paul B.
Okay.
And yeah, that was really a growing time for me. That was really a learning time for me. I think I probably learned more about dealing with relationships there because of mistakes I made I
Okay.
did at any other point in my life.
Okay.
And there again, they were very gracious about my eyesight issues. They were very willing to work with me. Um, they made a few accommodations for me in the computer. They never required me to drive, which nobody would want.
Yeah.
And actually, at the end, when I was working in human resources, I was a safety director. So I was doing forklift training.
Okay.
And
There you go.
I said to the HR director, I said, am I qualified to do forklift training? Because I shouldn't be driving them.
Right.
He said, yeah, you are qualified to teach it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. And that was really my first, I taught Sunday school and whatnot, but that was
Right.
really my first big exposure to teaching.
Okay.
And so guys understood how to drive it, but I would take them through the training and certify them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good place to work, and they have changed a lot over the years. Their father started the company. They went from a one-man shop.
Yeah.
His 6 sons went into it. Now the third generation is into it, and I'm just amazed at how big they are.
Yeah.
They have everything down here along Wood Corner Road.
Right.
They have 2 other hardware stores in central Pennsylvania.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, one's in Mechanicsburg, I believe, and I think one's in Belleville, and I might be wrong
Belleville.
about, yeah.
I think that's, because we've been by that one.
And then just last year, they opened one up in the Mechanicsburg area. And then they have another powder coating plant up in Mifflintown.
Okay.
Okay.
So they've done very well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
good guys, good business people.
Yeah.
They treat people right.
So what and when did you decide to go to China?
Well, I was never interested in China. In fact, I don't really enjoy Chinese food.
No.
Or I didn't.
Yeah.
What happened was the deacon at my church named Paul Snyder, he had a cousin who was teaching in China, and she taught in China for 19 years. So he was part of a group that was going to visit her. There was a group that went at Christmas to visit her. Then they would do Christmas programs, Christmas parties for her students.
Okay.
So he invited me to go along. I didn't want to go along.
Yeah.
Problem was, I couldn't think of an excuse not to.
Yeah.
So I said, yeah, I'll go along. Well, a couple of things happened on that trip. And one thing was I was walking down this main street of Anqing. That's the city I'm at in China,
Okay.
Anqing. I'm walking down there, and suddenly I had this weird feeling that, boy, this feels like my hometown.
Uh-huh.
Take that for what it's worth.
Yeah.
And then I was interacting with the students and having a great time with that. And students said to me, Dave, you should come back and be our teacher. And I thought, there was 9 people in my group.
Okay.
So I thought they'd say that to everybody. And I said to the group, I said, are the students telling you to come back and be their teacher? And they said, no,
Yeah.
it must just be you.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, brother. So by that point, I realized that Chinese food in China is pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay. All
It's
right.
very good, actually. And I loved it. And so I went home. I thought, well, if I'm still excited about this a month later, I'm going to begin to look at going back to teach. And so a month later, I was still excited. I began the process. I became connected with an organization called MPC, which stands for Mennonite Partners in China. And they provided teachers, English teachers for universities in China.
Okay.
So they worked with a lot of different schools at the time. And I was glad to go with them because they were able to provide a lot of good training for me. They were able to provide a lot of good support for me. And they understood how to work with the universities. I didn't.
Right.
So they wondered when I would want to go. I could have went in the fall of 2007. I said, well, I would rather go in January of 2008 because my dad's not doing well health-wise, and
Okay.
this could easily be his last Christmas.
Right.
And so I stayed home for Christmas that year. Glad I did, because in July of 2008, he passed on.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I'm glad I stayed home. And Dad, he was excited when he heard I was going to China.
Oh, really?
He
Okay.
was very excited
So
about it.
he didn't want you to play football, but he didn't carry you
Well,
into China. You were a little older at that
Yeah,
time.
and he was happy that I played football. He just didn't want me to get
Right.
hurt.
Yeah.
And I get that. I
Yeah.
get that. But yeah, he was very excited about that. He wanted to come visit, but we sort of knew that would never happen. My brother was excited.
Okay.
Mom, on the other hand, said, "Well, why don't you stay home with us?"
Yeah.
And so, but she became supportive of it. And
So you were there for 13 years.
yeah, I came home almost every summer.
Oh, okay. So you didn't.
Well, I got a message from my brother. He said, "Dad's in the hospital. It doesn't look well." My semester had just ended, so I was able to get home before he passed on, actually, which I'm thankful for.
Oh, yeah.
And then after that, I decided I need to come home every summer for the sake of Mom.
Okay.
And so I would come home for usually the semester would finish late June, so I would be home July and August, and then get back
Okay.
for the school year. So I was usually 10 months there, 2 months here.
Okay.
And then during that time, I realized that since I loved teaching, I needed more training for that. So I went to Azusa Pacific University in California, where I got my master's degree in TESOL, which is teaching English to speakers of other languages. And I was able to do that. It was a hybrid program where I would go to school for a couple weeks in the summer and a couple weeks in winter break. And then during the school year, when I was teaching, I would be doing the coursework and the research and whatnot.
Okay.
So
All right.
they designed the program for people who are teaching, so it worked out
Nice.
beautifully.
So you could technically, well, you'd have to, I guess, you could technically go to any country and teach English
Yeah.
at this point because of all your masters and your.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, some countries have an age limit. They
Okay.
won't look at people
Okay.
over 50,
Okay.
but they might look at me because of my experience and my education.
Yeah.
And just to give people an idea, I was teaching EFL. EFL is English as a foreign language. In the United States, people will teach ESL.
As a second language.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So when you're teaching EFL, which I was, all of my students had the same native tongue.
Okay.
But when you're teaching ESL, English is the common language.
Okay.
Because they're all coming from different places.
Yeah.
So with EFL, with what I'm teaching, one of the things that I'm always aware of is that, yes, I teach speaking. I teach conversation, and part of that is also public speaking. And so I know when I'm doing conversation, I know that my students are probably going to use Chinese from time to time.
Okay. Yeah.
And the approach I started to take with that is I watch and I try to figure out why they're using Chinese. Sometimes they're trying to figure something out. What is the grammatical structure here?
Oh, yeah.
What is the meaning of this word? There's something they don't get.
Right.
If that's the case, I let it go. Or I walk over and say, is there a question I can help you with? Sometimes they don't know the English word. Sometimes they didn't get much sleep the night before and they just want to talk Chinese.
Yeah, because it's a little easier to them. It's a little easier.
Well, one time I was teaching and I walked past a group of students and I knew they were talking Chinese, and I heard one girl say, as she saw me approaching, use English. And I just walked past and I gave her one of these. And she just gave me one of these and was laughing. Just creating that light atmosphere makes a big difference.
How old are the kids that
They're I've taught a lot of sophomores in college, so they're 19, 20, 21.
Okay.
And I say I taught them, but they've taught me a lot too, with Chinese culture and all that stuff. And the Chinese culture, it's a beautiful culture. And I think many times Western people, we make a mistake because we assume that Chinese culture is the same across China. Just like saying American culture is the same across the United States. It's not true.
Right.
So when it comes to the different holidays, I love talking to students from different places because the main points of the holiday are the same.
Yeah.
But they're all doing little things differently.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Just to learn those differences is beautiful.
Yeah.
And to learn, so many of their holidays, they've been celebrating for thousands of years.
Yeah.
And to learn that tradition and to learn the meaning behind that tradition.
Now, is China government-wise, they're okay with you being over there teaching. I'm sure they are. But like, and I think again, what happens between one country and another, we get fed that, like back in the Cold War, Russia was bad.
Yeah.
China's bad.
Yeah.
Which isn't true. I mean, the leaders maybe, but as a person, they're no different than we are. They just live in a different place on Earth.
Exactly.
But do you have any issues like if you went over there and like you said, holidays, taught about Christianity and Christmas, is that frowned upon over there or?
No.
Okay.
But here's the thing that's important. I've been at the same school for 13 years, and we have a great relationship. I'm looking forward to getting back there.
Okay.
And they know I'm a Christian.
Okay.
But they also know that I use my classroom to teach what they assign me to
Right.
teach.
You're not there doing propaganda.
No.
Yeah.
No,
right.
not at all.
Yeah.
And I've seen it happen both ways, where some Christians will use a classroom to promote Christianity, but also some people with other beliefs will use the classroom to promote their beliefs.
Yeah.
Well, and that's happening right here in the U.S. now.
Absolutely.
I mean, well, I guess it probably always
Yeah.
did, but it seems to be way more out of hand now than what it used to be.
And that is so wrong, because teach what you're supposed to teach.
Yeah.
There should be a trust there.
Right.
There's an implicit trust there. And I think that is so important. But every year at Christmas, I do a Christmas party for my students.
Okay.
And every year I check with the dean of the department, and he said, "Yeah, Dave, we like when you teach this because we want our students to know culture."
Okay. All right.
And so what I do is I have an old flannel graph. Remember the old flannel graphs from when you were kids? The piece of flannel on the board, and then
you
put
stick stuff.
you stick
Oh,
the characters
okay.
on
Yeah. It took me like
Yeah.
So I have one of those. Our young viewers won't know what that is. Get in Google and see if you can find out.
Yeah.
But it's so cool. So I have one of those. I mentioned Esther had been there. She had those.
Okay.
So she left me one.
Okay.
And so I use that to tell the biblical account of Christmas.
Okay.
And I tell students when I'm doing this, if you want to take photos or take videos, whatever, it's up to you.
Okay.
And so they do. They have a great time with it. Then I talk about other traditions of Christmas. I tell them about Santa Claus.
Okay.
And most people here probably do not know where Santa Claus originated from.
Germany.
Maybe Austria.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
But he was supposedly a very shy person who wanted to help children. And he did it through the church. He did it secretly through the church.
Okay.
And because of what he did, the legend of Santa Claus was born.
Do you know why Santa Claus today always is wearing red and white?
I have not heard that.
It's because at some point in time, because he used to wear different colors. There was no standard Santa. If you look at old postcards, he's purple, green, whatever. It's because of Coca-Cola.
Really?
Coca-Cola was the influence of why Santa Claus wears red and white. They apparently had an ad back, I don't know if it was in the 50s, whenever, but whenever Santa Claus went fully red and white, it was because of Coca-Cola.
I did not know that. That's incredible.
That's the truth, really.
And this is why you're the trivia master.
Oh, well, that is I do. It is nice because I don't know a lot of trivia. Like I know some, but by being the guy having to ask the questions, I do learn a lot by researching the questions. But anyway, you got a book. Before you run out of time, you wrote that book.
I wrote this book. It's called A Different Life. It's my story. I wanted to live a normal life, and then one day I realized I don't live a normal life because of my eyesight, because of where I lived. On the cover here, these things represent me in different ways. The globe, because I like culture.
Right.
I like different parts of the globe. Airplane to travel. Weightlifting. I still love to lift weights.
I got weight room right in the other side of that door over there.
Well, let's hit them over there. Teaching, and then family.
Oh yeah.
So
Nice.
one of the things when I wrote this book, I put in some personal photos, but then I put out a message to my students, and I had a lot of students sent me photos that they had taken.
Okay.
So I got some student input into this book, and also
Well, that's really neat.
some friends. And so I love these photos because there's some great action photos of me, and I didn't even know the photos were taken. But
And that, how long ago did you write that? Just very recently?
well,
Or?
I wrote the first part of the book in this summer of 2020.
Okay.
That was my only summer in China because I stayed there because of COVID.
Mhm.
I felt the safest place to be was where I was at.
Yeah,
Okay.
makes sense.
And then in the winter break of 2021, I wrote the second part of the book. When I came home in 2021, I had a cousin, Jeff, who helped me edit the book.
Okay.
And then we got it on Amazon.
Okay.
Locally, I have it in 3 stores in the area, Goods.
Okay.
Mhm.
In the new goods here in Ephrata.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they have 4 locations. I think they have it
Yeah.
in all
Yeah.
4. Yeah. Clay Bookstore
Okay.
and Ken's Educational Joys down below Hinkletown.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
I have it in Kindle on Amazon, and then I also have a large print version on Amazon.
Oh,
I
okay.
thought, as a legally blind person, if I don't write a large print version,
Yeah.
that's a shame.
Yeah. That's very interesting. And to be honest, you're the third person that we've had on here that
Mhm.
has written books.
Really?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
we had a girl, I think she's around 40, works in real estate, but wrote a book dealing with how basically geared towards single females and how to become financially independent.
Mhm.
And then we had a addiction counselor who also travels the world, works mainly when he's not in the U.S., goes to Africa
Mhm.
and works with addicts in Africa. But he wrote 2 books.
2 books.
Two
Really?
books. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's and I've always thought about writing a book. I don't know exactly about what, but I never even started. I got the cover. I made the cover. I have the cover ready.
Yeah, that's great that you did that because so many do say, "Oh, I love to do this," but they never actually.
Well, you know,
do,
you've
and
done
it's not- life gets in
just
your way.
talking to you. You see, I mean, you've lived way more of a life than people without any handicaps. I mean, you just
Well,
do what you want to do. I mean,
yeah.
you seem to
I think
decide, hey, I'm going to do this, and
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have a lot of things they want to do,
oh yeah,
but they have that fear to take that step.
and that is a big thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, one of the things I'm working on right now, I'm working in certification to become a life coach.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I want to help people move beyond that.
Yeah.
And I figure when I go back to China, that is still going to benefit me.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but yeah, it's true. Life is exciting,
Oh yeah.
and I think
And
sometimes
the older I get, the more I realize that.
Yeah.
But when I was in my 40s, even early 50s, you're right. You have it. You know, you're sort of stuck in a job,
yeah,
and you're sort of afraid to leave it because you have all that time in, and
Yeah.
you have seniority, and you
Yeah.
just it does. It's a hindrance.
yeah. Now I will say this though. Now I've never married, so I don't have any
Okay.
children.
Okay.
But I will say this: during that time when families are raising children, that's
You
a
need
different
that
point in life.
stability.
You
Yeah.
need that
Yeah.
stability. So I totally respect and
Right.
support that.
Yeah. And I get, yeah, when my kids were still living here, um, you sort of geared your life to them because you only get one shot to
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
And now that they're grown and doing better than I'm doing, now I can do what I want to do. And that's why I do trivia and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
But I would say if you want to write a book, what I wanted to write a book for several years and I didn't get it done. Then one day I sat down and I made a chapter outline.
Okay.
Uh,
All right.
And then I was able to sit down and
Yeah.
just write
A little
for
at a
each
time.
chapter.
Yeah.
Small
Yeah.
steps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of just trying to start at the beginning and work from beginning to end.
Yeah, because
you
when you
sort of gave an outline.
Yeah, when you sit down and think I need to write 200 pages, you think, oh brother.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you sit down and say I need to write 5 pages, or I want to write 5 pages about this topic,
Right.
it's not so intimidating.
Overwhelming. Yeah.
Mhm.
I do want to point out one thing that you said that I really appreciated. You pointed out how Chinese people and American people were people.
Yeah, I for whatever weird reason, and I wake up a lot at night.
Yeah.
Like I go to bed fairly early, fall asleep like that,
Mhm.
but I tend to wake up and when I'm awake in the middle of the night, and for whatever reason, and I think probably because I knew you were coming today and you live in China, but I thought about that.
Yeah.
The whole wherever you live, the powers that be in that land, that country, you're hearing their opinion of everything, or their agenda, or what their ego and power trip wants you to hear. And that, so we in America, and I thought of the Cold War. Back in the World War II, you heard of the axis of evil.
Yeah.
And nowadays it's more almost, I mean, you still got Russia, but now China's the enemy.
Yeah.
Well, Chinese people and people here in the US, the only thing we would like to do is get along with each other.
Exactly.
It's the fact that the powers that be can't let well enough alone. And like they say, rich men want to become king. King ain't happy till he owns everything. It's those few people that get in our way of being a decent society across the globe.
Yeah. Now, I will say my experience in China, I had friends who worked for the Chinese government. They worked for the local government, the city I was in. They were good people.
Okay.
And I always found my interactions with the Chinese government was very positive.
Okay.
I think one thing, so we don't always agree with what governments do. We don't always agree with what our government does, but we don't want to get into all that.
Yeah.
Right.
But one thing that I have noticed is in the 10 years that I have been there, in the 13 years that I have been there, the last 10 especially, the lives of the ordinary Chinese person have improved a lot.
And that's good to know. And that's not something you hear every day from our government or.
And I think the government there is trying to do what is in the best interest of the Chinese people. And one of the things that I wish would happen is people, whether it be governments, whether it would be people in general, when they want to work together, instead of saying, how can this benefit me, saying, how can this benefit us?
Yeah.
And create a spirit of collaboration.
Right.
That would make a ton of difference.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But in the future, if you would be interested, I would love to come back and talk specifically about China and Chinese culture.
You give us a date.
Yeah. All right.
And I was going to say you'd be the first two-timer, but we already had some girl that was on twice. But no, by all means, that because we're at a little over an hour now, and that's usually where we cut this off. But we tell everybody, we didn't get to even begin to cover everything. And so any one of our guests, you included, all you got to do is say, hey, when you have an opening, and at this point it would be almost every week after this week. So,
I would love to do that, because one of the things I try to do when I'm in China is give people a better understanding of the United States. They think everything is what they see in Hollywood in the United States. I say no. And then when I'm here, I try to give people here.
No, that would be excellent. I think that would be a benefit to all of society. Actually,
we need to build bridges, and we can learn from each other. We can learn from each other's cultures. Both cultures are beautiful, and I've been lucky enough to live and experience both.
So if we, you come back, there's a chance that he might talk about transhumanism. No,
but I really, I'm totally like, I just wish governments would get out of the way. And whether it be ours, theirs, wherever, it just seems like a lot of the issues in the world are created by such a few amount of people.
Well, here's one of the things I don't get. When I look at our government, for example, since when did government become a competition? It bothers me. It bothers me. People in government are people too.
Right.
Be people.
Right. Be people.
Right.
Yep. And it's just gotten. They're not even interested in the country as a whole. All they're interested is putting the other party down. And not working together for the good of the whole. Them high-end government people, they don't care nothing about you which is unfortunate, because they're there to do that.
It's very important. And that's a weakness in our government right now. It really is.
Well, and the good ones that do care are
never get elected.
Either don't get elected or are manipulated to do something.
Yeah,
maybe And
Yeah,
that's a
that's
shame
good.
because there are good people that
Right.
that really do get higher up and
Yeah.
want to do good things. They just, I think, hit some walls if they can't
Yeah,
move forward.
yeah.
It makes it frustrating.
You're right.
Yeah.
All righty then, we're gonna end it there. But I would really like to thank Dave.
Thank you very much.
He's way interesting
Yeah.
and lives right up the road here.
Yes,
Who would
I
have
do.
thought?
Yes, I do.
And like I say, if he wants to come back and talk about how China, what he does, like China versus the U.S. culture-wise, by all means, you're welcome back.
I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Oh, no problem. And
as
again,
as a little gift,
Yeah.
I'm going to let this book here with you.
oh well, that
guys.
would be great. Yeah, we'll share that.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
We get along.
Yeah.
All right.
This is the perfect cure for insomnia. Just kidding.
Okay. All right, you guys. We'll see you next week. All righty.